April Fool's Day, typically a day for pranks and fun and lame people making lame jokes, getting lame responses from their lame friends. Yes. It's also a Friday, which of course is the new, let's release music on this day of the week day as of last year. So the two coincided. So there's a band that released 2 albums and many people thought, what an elaborate prank. What a bunch of pricks. And then realized they were actually the releases that had been worked on for about 4 years. And it sliced the cake with the albums Odyssey to the West and its companion piece, its prequel piece, which is entitled Odyssey to the Gallows. So this band has been described as progressive deathcore, which to some people may seem like oil and water, that it doesn't really make sense, but to me it seems like it's one of the logical places that deathcore can experiment with another form of heavy metal or another form of musical expression in order to expand its overall sound, something that will give it a little bit more dynamism. And really, this is a concept that has been done before. It's just that a lot of times the bands will just opt to seem a little bit more privy to the progressive death metal instead of having the core in there as well. This is one that's really strange. I kind of want to throw this more along the direction of just avant-garde metal, as opposed to getting sort of lost in all of these genre heroics, because there is enough here that I feel that tag really kind of fits. Either that or just inventing something completely brand new for this, like Scribner metal or epic fucking Shakespeare metal. Whatever the hell you want to call it, it's really up to you. Let's start talking about it, though, because there's a lot to digest here. Over the course of these 2 albums, that's right, there's 2 of them. The first, which is Odyssey to the Gallows, is about 28 minutes by itself. And then Odyssey to the West is 77 minutes, I believe. Or, yep, 77. Had to double check. That's a lot of music. That's a lot to take in. It really is. That's the astonishing level of music to take in. But if we were able to soldier our way through that, we can soldier our way through this. And this is going to be the experience that some people may talk about with a little bit more fervor than the astonishing, actually, those that actually do listen to it. Because Odyssey to the Gallows is this extremely strange mix of really dramatic poetry being read to noise music to, very minimal passages, some of which seem to sync up to some of the riffs if you slowed them down from Odyssey of the West. And you're getting this story of a character known as the Pilgrim, and we're seeing explorative themes of ideas like religion, of many things of this variety. It's an expansive journey, one that's supposed to be taken within yourself, and it's supposed to really represent kind of walking through life and trying to understand what it is that we're meant to be, what it is that we intend to really do, what is the purpose of each and every one of us, or what is, to be more concrete, the purpose of self. And this feels very much like folks that love swans are going to be in hog heaven, because it has over-the-top theatrics. Now, the music doesn't exactly move much, but it's simply noise backdrop in order to really build this mood. And I'm already getting some hints of a little bit of, like, I remember the first time I listened to Prometheus by Emperor, that album. I'm getting some of those feelings as well whenever it comes to the creativity and some of the sort of the layering that they're using in order to try to boost and build up this, like, sort of wall of sound that tapers behind. At times, the wall of sound actually begins to swallow the lyricism, or in this case, the poetry, whole, and it actually creates this effect that I just spoke about and said that you typically don't want to do that, but it creates this effect of literally being washed over in thought, or washed over in conflict. So this is a portion where that idea of having your music swallow your lyricism or your poetry at times sort of works out very beautifully. This was a real eye-opener whenever I listened to it and sort of got started on this Odyssey, because it encourages a little bit of personal Odyssey, and plus, all of the lyricism is available on Slice the Cake's website, which I'll post in the comments, the description box below, and you can sort of read along with it, and it is very well written. This is extremely, extremely well written. Somebody really studied up a lot of the writings of the ancient Greeks, definitely a lot of Shakespeare. The prose has just a fantastic flow to it. It's not one that is sticks to just iambic pentameter, either that, or it's not one that feels like it has to haphazardly rhyme all of the time just in order to make its point. It's one that is free-flowing, and I dig that. It goes with the music very, very nicely, and every single emotion that is captured here feels genuine. Moving on to Odyssey of the West is where you start to see those ideas of progressive and deathcore come together. And that's whenever you realize that this tag is not all of that bad, and it's not one that should be all of that concerning. It's more so in the construction and the sound itself, rather than the overall notion that perhaps some people get whenever they hear those words individually or together. You will hear those deep, deep growls, those deep vocals that you often hear propagate a deathcore band's sound, but this is one that's once again going up against with a little bit of poetry, with a little bit of dramatic reading. It's something where the two actually merge and become one and craft this story that you're following along with by now, hopefully. Hopefully you've gone to get the lyrics to really read in front of you, and you're just kind of lost in this, and you're kind of lost in this story where the music itself is... It sort of just fits this backdrop, this chaotic backdrop that suits what this story is kind of going for, what this conflict is going for. It's just one that they really Slice the Cake on this album really does two things very, very well. The first one is represent conflict, represent insanity, represent being sort of on that brink and having all that chaos and all of that confusion really spew forth. But the second thing that they do excellently is that they're able to balance this a little bit. They are able to balance this. It's not one that's done as well as perhaps I would have hoped. It's not one that's done as well as, say, Between the Buried and Me, which feels chaotic by itself, or a group that's able to sort of divide their time between chaos and beauty to provide a little bit of a middle ground. But it's instead done well in the way that this story progresses, where your chaos and your confusion are handled on a couple of tracks, and then you do get something that is more reflective, that does have a softer element to it. The Lantern, for example, track number 6, reminds me of Pain of Salvation, and it reminds me of those tracks where Daniel will just go off on these tangents. Ending Theme is a terrific example of this off of Remedy Lane, and it just feels like this is one there's a big internal dialogue going on here, and it's one that just screams Pain of Salvation, and screams it very, very well. Unending Waltz is another one of these songs where you're getting a lot of the story recited to you in the form of poetry, but I love the fact that this is not delivered in a droll way. It's not being delivered in just a very singular way. It's instead very much captivated by the emotion, very much... It's like a performance piece. It's like a performance piece that you would hear from perhaps a suitor in the Odyssey trying to gain Penelope's affection. It is one where they deliver it with that sort of just real pride behind it. It's its own individual idea. It's its own individual musical thought. They treat it as the song itself, as opposed to it just merely being the theme, either that or the furthering the plot. It has more meaning than just furthering the plot. So many bands, whenever they further the plot, will try the dramatic reading angle. They'll try that, and it'll just come off feeling very hokey. It feels a little bit strange. It feels a little bit bland. This method works better. Some people may call it a bit overly theatrical, but this whole entire album is theatrical. Probably overly theatrical. So if you have a problem with that at this point, 9 tracks in, this is not the first time you're having a problem with it. Really liked what Destiny's Fool and The Holy Mountain were able to deliver, but the one thing I'll say about The Holy Mountain, I love finales, and after probably more than 110 minutes worth of music, you need something to really, to sort of solidify this album as something special. They didn't really pull that off very well. The first half of the song is very, very good. It didn't end with any sort of craziness, kind of more of a fade. And you know what? I would traditionally be more, I guess upset about that, but it's almost like closing the book. It's almost like closing the book. So it's something I'm willing to accept and accept very well. I'm not going to take that to heart at all. This is a listen that's extremely challenging. I'm going to just throw that out there to everybody who is thinking about picking this up and giving it a listen. It's an exceptionally challenging listen, even though it is a deathcore, style with progressive and blah blah blah, whatever you want to call it. However you want to slice this hair, go right the fuck ahead. I'm not going to care all that much about that. This is very well done. It's very well crafted, and I love the fact that they took this massive storyline, they wrote it elegantly, and they decided to just go for it. And I know that this is something that has actually caused one of the members to leave the band. Like I said, I don't know much about these guys, but I know what I've read over the past few days. And one of the three, this is a trio, one of the three has opted to depart from the band. And it's very sad to see, because this is extremely ambitious and tremendous, and you almost wonder what they would do next. But slice the cake with Odyssey to the Gallows and Odyssey to the West. What is there not to be said? 88 out of 100. Really love how they were able to present this disc. I think that the full package is pretty remarkable. The only shortcomings that I see is that there's a little bit of an imbalance in the style, and really some of those deathcore portions are still not totally my cup of tea, but I'm not holding that against them in all fairness. I think that there's just a little bit of an art that you learn whenever you're going to the School of Elegance of trying to make things all suit up a little bit. Remember how I said that on Odyssey of the Gallows that sometimes the vocals kind of get lost within the music, and it worked. Sometimes that does happen, or it becomes way too focused on Odyssey to the West, and it actually becomes more distracting than helpful. But aside from that, the songwriting is very well done, very well crafted. Like I said, it's a very, very challenging listen. It's not something that you can really handle if it's not something you think you can handle in one sitting, then do break it up, do take the time. Though I will say, this is a story that if you can sit down and watch a 2-hour movie epic, you can listen to this album and follow along with the story. It's something to behold, and it's something you should probably check out. I'll leave a link to their Bandcamp in the description box below. I want to know what you guys think about this. You guys are actually what propelled me to do this. A lot of you were talking about Odyssey to the West over on the coverkillernation fan page and in the stream on Saturday. So I want to know what you guys think. What did you guys think about Odyssey of the West and Odyssey to the Gallows by Slice the Cake? What do you think their future seems like? Is this the end for the band, or is this going to be their magnum opus? Let me know what you think. coverkillernation. I'll talk to you guys next time. Man, this is tiring. Later.